Writes for Saturday Night Live, and we'll be seeing samples of both of their works a bit later. Oh, there are your names on the screen, fellas, in case you
All right.
in case you have any problem with that. I failed to hold up the book. Yes, there he is, the Late Night with David Letterman book of top 10 lists, and it even comes complete with 10 reasons you should have it. There now. Did that help? I hope it did.
Oh yeah, I'm happy.
It all helped. Let's see. Let's make this an earnest seminar on the subject of comedy and see if we can put the viewers to sleep. I think that aside from love, comedy is the deadliest subject you can be serious about. So we'll try not to be too much. But the difference between the two shows seems to strike me a bit. One aspect of it that doesn't get dwelt on that much is the lifestyle of working on them is supposed to be very different. The image outside is that the Saturday Night Live people live a life of parties and boisterousness and paper hats and very late hours.
We're famous for our paper drives, of course, and the big community breakfasts we have.
And well, that sort of completes, and that the Letterman people live a more bourgeois, bankers sort of existence.
Well, yeah, sort of have to. We're maybe more like a newspaper, where they're a slick, glossy magazine, or at least a weekly.
Is that what it is?
All right, they're like the Sunday Parade, and right, and we're like the Daily News.
Yeah, I think that pretty well spells it out. The hours are vastly different, right? You'd have to change your entire biology to move from one show to the other.
Well, yeah, you could more or less say that I'll see Conan coming into the building while I'm leaving.
Yeah. Right. Has anyone pointed out that the two of you each that both of you comes, do you know what I mean? That in each case you come
we
from...
rode a car here together, if that's what you mean.
We have that in common.
Comes from Harvard.
Yeah.
That isn't anything to be ashamed of, and I don't want to rub it in. And
that comes up a lot. It seems to come up more and more since the early 1980s, when you started seeing Harvard graduates, and especially men and women who are on the Harvard Lampoon, the humor magazine, organization on campus, writing TV and for magazines and so on. It seems to be a surprise to a lot of people, because I think still the classic popular notion of Harvard graduates isn't knee-slapping and funny, but rather kind of maybe dull and wan and pale and annoying. And
the idea of, Mom, I've decided to go to Harvard and write gags for pantaloons and comics. And
it's become like,
with your shoulders bare on stage.
It really has become like more of a respectable occupation, I think. I think if you had said in the 60s, if you had come out of Harvard in 1965 and said, I'm going to write for TV, that you'd be seen as some sort of failure. Mm-hmm. But now it's definitely, you get more people. I think now you're seeing people at Harvard who are thinking, maybe TV is a good career for me.
You couldn't have found anybody who was thinking that not that many years ago at Harvard, I'm sure. But we don't open the catalog and see a survey course of comedy from Aristophanes to Roseanne.
I don't know. I wouldn't put it past.
Yeah, it seems right about now. I think when I was at school in the mid-'70s, I don't think it was a viable career option quite then yet. But I think now I talk with undergraduates and they say, well, I'm writing some scripts, I'm going to send them out to, Viacom or Fox or something like that. And it seems like they accept as a matter of course that this is a profession like dentistry or lawyering or
and by the
State Department.
By the time I graduated Harvard, which was 1985, I got a call. I got 2 agents calling me, while I was writing my thesis, which...
You mean they're scouting Harvard now?
I think they are. I mean, I think there's a little bit of that now because, which is, maybe somehow perverted. But, I got calls from people. They were unsolicited. They were just like, they had heard let's call the Lampoon Castle, give it a shot, invest 10 minutes in a phone call and see what idiot answers.
One of the guys might pan out.
Right. So.
Let me look at an example of each of your work. I'm having trouble with my pronouns here. Here, let's start with a clip from SNL, Saturday Night Live. This is a thrill to see your work come alive.
That cracks me up every time I see it. Let's do it again.
Want to run it back?
Please, could we? I've got time.
Okay. The genesis of that, was that ordered?
That was just, I went to, I think I was out on the street with another writer on the show, Robert Smigel, and it was just something, a girl went by, and I think it started when I was acting like an idiot, and I just watched a girl went by, and I said, hello and goodbye. She's not interested in me at all. And he started doing it, and we both had fun doing it, so we thought we'll give it a try. And then Tom Hanks, was great doing it. A lot of it's just matching it to the host.
Yeah.
If a host can do it,
Are there hosts who come in with a list of things that, please don't ask me to do this or that, or...
Yeah, there are. I mean, if a host has just been involved...
Conversely, do they want to be asked to do crazy stuff that you'd rather they didn't? And
It's funny, sometimes you get a host who is on the show only because they've been involved in some huge scandal. They've just committed a murder or something, and that's the reason they're on the show. And they come in the first day there, they say, look, nothing about that. And that's always, someone who would never be on anyway. But in general, I'm surprised by how good a sense of humor most hosts have about,
Can you think of anybody who refused to do something just because that didn't fit his image or hers?
Yeah, well, I remember I worked on a sketch. I worked on a sketch and with George Steinbrenner, and I think there was one thing in it where he had to do something really silly that he, like dance or something, and he was like, I don't really want to, I don't want to be seen dancing. And, you can understand that. Some people have...
We were deprived of the Steinbrenner terpsichore, eh?
Yeah, and yet we got to see the president's son, Ron Reagan Jr., dancing around in his BVDs.
Yeah, everyone has
his BVDs, right?
Well, they probably were from wardrobe.
Could have been.
They were BVDs.
They were so
we
crisp.
checked on that.
That's right. That goes back some years.
Yeah.
Steinbrenner wouldn't do that.
No, I mean, that's, I think he just made it clear, he was uncomfortable, and, he was a good sport about a lot of things on that show, actually. I think he wore a bra, actually, a stuffed bra.
That's a sign of flexibility.
Yeah, so it's strange that you do get hosts that say things like, I'm not going to, please don't make me wear a bathing suit, but then they're really happy to be greased up and, shot through a cannon.
You're not revealing some secret about Steinbrenner that you caught. This is part of the show that you're discussing.
He wanted to be greased up. I'm just...
Really?
For the cast part.
I read something to that effect, but I guess I wasn't ready for it. We can take another example now, this time a bit of comedy from the David Letterman Show.
I appreciate you dropping by.
Thank you very much. Now, you remember what I said way back in 1982?
When we first went on the air...
In 1982,
right.
I said that if your show lasted 8 years, I would eat 1,000 cocktail wieners in 1 minute. And the end of my word, that's a stopwatch. Let's do it. Come on.
Now, Tom, you're serious. You don't have to...
Absolutely, 1,000 cocktail wieners.
All right, here we go. Ready?
Yes.
Set, go. 1, 2, 3...
Late Night with David Letterman, 8th Anniversary Special, will return in a moment. Here with an important update is Bob Jameson from NBC in New York.
Good evening. The local, national, and international situations are essentially unchanged since the news broadcast earlier this evening. Repeat, the world situation is stable. There have been no major developments. Word of serious or unusual breakthroughs would certainly have reached NBC News by now, but no such word has been received. Sources within the State Department, the Pentagon, and the Franklin Mint confirm that everything is pretty much the way it was before. Again, NBC News has established that nothing much is up, everything is okay, or at least it's about the same as it was an hour ago. This is Bob Jameson in New York.
We now return to David Letterman's 8th Anniversary Special, already in progress.
998, 999, 1,000, all right, 58 seconds.
Well, this is all part of the Tom Hanks tribute month that's going on.
I just
all throughout,
realized that, right.
Well, actually, we only work with Hanks.
Apparently, Tom Hanks supports most of comedy in America.
Yeah.
He's the workhorse.
Two pieces from random, both with Tom Hanks. Nothing has changed. We'll be back right after this, if not during it. Talking with two writers from, one each, that is, from Saturday Night Live and from David Letterman, and I'm going to assume you didn't just join us, or just join us in this country and not know what those shows are, so we'll move right along. The Saturday Night Live atmosphere has changed since the old days, I gather, of Belushi and so on. Is it still legendary there, or are there old-timers who say, I survived it?
Yeah, I mean, there's people there who were there in '75, and obviously that was probably more of a, intense experience than the one I've had. I've been at Saturday Night Live for 3 years, and I think if you were there in the, from 75 to 80, you obviously were probably living through, it was such a happening then.
Yeah, do you think it was any easier to write for it then when you had all of the, it was kind of going against the culture, it had a sort of definition?
I just think maybe it was more, Saturday Night Live was, it was more of an event then, and I think the writing was great then. But I've heard people who were there at the time say that now it's a little harder because there's been such a comedy boom, there's been so much has been commented on that now you have to work a little harder to find something that's, new or interesting.
Yeah. So also, did Lorne Michaels, was he quoted somewhere as saying, or was it perhaps to one of you, that on the Letterman show now you can kind of wink at the camera, but we have to hit a, really connect with the ball each time.
No, I've met Lorne Michaels.
Leading to the idea that it's somehow easier to write.
No, he mentions that every time I've met him about taking a full swing at the ball, and he's right. I mean, we can goof around. Again, it's that
Right.
daily throwaway quality like a paper, but they've got to take a full swing at the ball. They set themselves up and say, here's our premise,
Right.
now here it is for your formal consideration. Hope you like it.
And then when it happens, when the joke of the whole 10-minute sketch, which you've worked all week on, is revealed in the first minute and the audience doesn't like it, the machine has to just keep rolling, and that's often humiliating.
Have you noticed that if you go down the hall and bury your head and there's something where you can't hear the lack of laughter, it helps at times like that?
Well, actually, the thing that you do most commonly is when your sketch is really falling apart is you stand there and watch the monitor and laugh like, it's dying, I find this amusing too. And then you go home and, weep bitterly.
Yeah.
So.
Wishing you were anywhere else, including the Titanic. Probably.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Now, when does Letterman ever get annoyed at the writers and come out and say, God's wounds, these alleged scribes have not handed me anything in the humor vein in a fortnight? I would say
he well, it very much like that. The quatrains. No, he would never do that, but he would be extremely picky and fussy beforehand. I mean, the turn-down rate is very high.
The selectivity is.
Yeah, so once he's picked something, he must think at least enough of it to give it a shot, and if it doesn't go, he's not going to storm off and crumple up the blue cards and...
He's been around long enough to know it doesn't pay to berate the writer. He didn't see, I can't imagine him in a rage of that kind anyway.
No, I would say he probably appears his crankiest right on the air, complaining about the...
Save it for the air.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But do you happen to know why he has a particular knowledge of buttons?
He seems to... you mean like
shirt buttons?
Shirt buttons? Well, of course, his London tailor on Savile Row. No, I've never heard that before. I know he has a vast knowledge of a lot of stuff, whether it's shock absorbers or names of Canadian provinces. He seems to have a wide-ranging knowledge in general, which makes him good to work with because he'll know what you're talking about or better than you do.
Well, that confirms something then. It also gives me a theory because I once showed him around New Orleans and he was amazed at what he thought was my esoteric knowledge of New Orleans, but I had been there before and knew a bit about it. So maybe that's why he made a point. See, I wore this shirt in case he saw this show because I wore it up to his office one day and he said, that's a Banana Republic shirt, I think, isn't it? Yeah, he said, you know how I know? The buttons. I went, oh, right, of course. And this has puzzled me ever since.
Well, I think it's simple. I think he's just observant and has a good memory and is pretty smart, but...
He didn't want to just be competitive because I knew New Orleans, he showed he knew buttons.
Plus, well, he likes to wear his button knowledge on his sleeve.
I think you've handled yourself perfectly on this absurd subject that I brought up. If I were your employer, I would give you a raise. Could you guys each change jobs, you think, without any major adjustments? Do you see them as one way?
I know Conan could do mine, just because, I mean, he's already got the sort of the more structure and so on. I mean, we're less writers, I think, on the Letterman show than just sort of idea persons. I mean, Dave Letterman's strengths, I think, are being spontaneous and responding to things. So our job is more giving him things to do where he can improvise and be himself and react to stuff. I'd have trouble, with just knuckling down to do characters and plot. And
oh, you could do it.
Wow.
It's easy.
All right, we'll make a bet right here. 50
right
bucks,
here.
I say.
All right.
Switch jobs.
You could test this just for fun. No one would have to know. You could borrow each other's typewriters if they're known to your employers and just try
They'd
once
catch
and
on.
see what happens.
They're pretty sharp.
What if one of you got the other one canned? That would not be nice.
Yeah. I think I saw that on the Flintstones, though, once, where...
It's not a bad idea for a sitcom.
I'm Barney to his Fred.
Yeah.
That's right, or Wilma goes down to the shale pit, and Fred tries, vacuuming with the mastodon or whatever.
I think the house is always filled with bubbles at the end. It always
Just a
ends
good
that
rule
way.
of thumb on sitcoms
If we switch
anyway.
jobs, this studio will be filled with bubbles. I don't know why. That's how it's going to work out.
By the way, years ago, and I think even today, when they can't think of an ending for a sketch, everyone yells and throws food at each other or something.
The rave-off.
The
number 11.
Is that called the rave-off?
Yeah. Well, that's what, yeah. If you ever can't think of an ending for a sketch, it's always good to either have someone jump out a window and have someone else give one of those big reactions, which I do in every other sketch I write, or, have a big fight break out.
Yeah, the plunge to the plate glass. We can always have Paul Schaefer do a little song. That kind of seems to wrap things up, and then it's good night, everybody, drive safely.
Music's your best friend at a time like that. I wouldn't want to put you on the spot in any way, but who's been the worst schmuck you've had as a guest on Saturday Night Live?
Oh, man. I don't know if I don't know if contractually or legally what I can say. I don't think I can say, because whoever, I have someone
there's
in...
a clear winner, though.
Yes, there's a clear winner since I've been there, but if I say, I know they're going to want this person back,
Oh,
if I say,
then
I know he's watching now.
Why play, we know it's a male. That pretty much narrows it down. I think we all know who it is now.
Yes.
Thinking, Linda Ronstadt off the hook.
All right. Don Knotts did the show, and he was just,
We don't mean Don Knotts. I'll tell you what. No, if I promise to tell viewers who write in, if you tell me afterwards, I'd be a fool. So I'm not going to make that promise.
I'll tell you afterwards, and if anyone writes in now, that you will supply them with the answer.
If you can prove that it's postmarked during this show.
All right, it's a deal.
Okay.
It'll be in the show's newsletter anyway.
We better change the subject. Open this to any top 10 list, and I'll sight read it and see if I can make either of you laugh.
Okay.
Why am I doing this?
Well,
I don't even have glasses or maybe...
Top 10 names for the reunited Germany?
Yeah. Anybody got a pair of glasses?
It's pretty big
No.
time.
Wait a minute. I bet I do.
You can try, but I'm not
Here are
laughing.
the top 10, what names?
New names for the
New names for
reunited
United Germany. I, of course, start with 10.
10, right down to 1.
Because I've seen the show. One of them is number 10, Kegerland. Just Plain Volks. Siegfried and Roy. 7, Aryan Acres. 6, Argentina East. I love that. 5, The Love Shack. 4, Nazi-chusets. 3, Switzerland's Badass Neighbor. 2, Home of Das Whopper. And number 1, Cindy.
Oh, that was nice.
That's not bad. Try another one. I think these
It's
are
not the
fun.
same without the drum roll.
I know, you got to have a drum roll.
And perhaps a song from Paul.
And
Well, how about some luncheon meats?
okay, top 10 least popular Oscar Mayer lunch meats are number 10, pulled hamstring. Number 9, grissalami. Number 8, smoked Schwarzenegger. 7, gee, your ham smells terrific. 6, Eva Braunschweiger. 5, San Diego chicken roll. 4, Joseph Bologna. 3, Smoky Pittsburgh Senorita, aimed at Hispanic women smokers who live in the Pittsburgh area.
Little market research.
Hey, those aren't pimentos. And number 1, Hoffaloni. Tremendous. I find things like the ones where people's feelings can be hurt the funniest.
Well, yeah, I think we've heard a few feelings. But we've gotten some nice response from people, like Ralph Nader has, we did a list of, top 10 ways American cars would be different if Nader had never been born, and there were things like, piano wire seat belts and in-dashboard hibachi and that kind of stuff. And he wrote a note and said he wanted a copy of the list, and that was sort of nice. So
that was nice.
Some people like them.
There was, what was the one that killed me is the punchlines of favorite Scottish jokes.
Oh,
I think.
that is absolutely one of my favorites. Yeah, but it was just...
That's not a bagpipe, but keep playing it anyway. And other things that just,
That's right.
I couldn't imagine what the jokes could possibly
Oh, the other one was, another one was, oh, you mean you can get wool off them too?
Yes. Oh, wait a minute. It's being gotten around the studio as we sit
It's been a quiet studio audience, but they're loosening up now.
So when you guys get fully grown up, do you see yourselves as still writers, or will you break through having succumbed? Well, one of you performs perform. There's no stranger to the limelight, I know.
Well, you perform on the, I guess we both dabble.
Yeah.
Some marginal performing.
Yeah.
But it's not a stepping stone yet to... You have a few minutes to think about this when we come back.
You're watching CNBC.
Gentlemen, as young fellows, I mean, even younger than you are now, what TV did you grow up on?
Oh, well, I remember really, I watched a lot of SCTV in the late, mid to late 70s, which is around the time that I was in grade school and high school. When I was younger, I loved Get Smart. I thought that was a great show. That, that was a show that really made me laugh when I was a kid.
And that's among your early TV memories?
Yeah. Well, I guess the earliest memories. I guess that was when I was starting to become aware of comedy, and I remember watching Get Smart and thinking it was hilarious. Before that, it was all Dean Martin specials and things like that, which I didn't understand. But
they're complex.
Yeah, they're very lots of complex riddles in there.
They're published now with footnotes for those.
Yeah, well,
did you pick yourself writing though then, or was that way off?
I remember, around the time I was watching SCTV and really falling in love with it, I remember thinking, this is something I'd like to do. We would get the ones with the old Indian head logo, which were, I think they were like, the bad reception. I remember we used to stay up late and watch them, and I would watch Saturday Night Live too, but I remember feeling more excited about SCTV. I thought it was so odd, it was so different
and funny. I mean,
yeah, it was really great, and I remember thinking that's sort of when I started to think, maybe this is something. How does one do that? Where can I do this? Where do I sign?
There is the common feeling that writing is just a job with a built-in frustration that suddenly hits you. Hell, I could go out and get those laughs too. Why am I giving this away? I can honestly say I don't remember feeling that writing for people I wrote for, Carson or others. I guess at the time you're so tickled that your stuff gets used and said by famous people in their voice that you.
Well, also it's not like I would write something for Dana Carvey or Phil Hartman, who are and have them do it, and I just never sit on the sidelines and say I could do a better, than Dana, because I think that feeling comes a lot out of when you see people who you feel, if you feel you could do it better, then I think that's when that frustration really kicks in. But I don't feel that at the show.
I don't know if this is universal. Do you know writers like yourself? Well, see, do you want to? Are you really
no, not
wishing
really.
you were out there?
I feel the satisfaction is in the writing and putting it together. I mean, we get to do small bits on the show just because we throw everything together at the last minute and usually cast from our own office and studio crew. We've had a writer or two who were natural performers and took to it, quickly and adeptly, like Chris Elliott, who has his own show that's very funny on Fox.
Elliott.
But I don't think that's really true of the rest of us. Maybe because some have done some stand-up here and there and, suffered enough to kind of know, well, maybe we look too much like writers standing up there talking. It's not quite solid or confident enough. Writing is the happiness for me.
Are you going to stand on your constitutional rights, as David Lloyd has done, not to be made a producer once you're a successful comedy writer? I think he examined the Constitution and found that you don't have to become a producer if you don't want to.
Wow, it seems like some people sort of want to, though. Maybe that's just, again, it's role-playing. You can't just keep getting the same title. You can't remain a lieutenant forever.
True.
Get those oak clusters or whatever they are.
Yeah, well, sometimes we have to resist temptations.
Well, my plan is to become an alcoholic prep school teacher.
Thank you both for being here. We're nearly out of time, and I want to thank you both for being not only so splendid and so good in your jobs, but revealing to me that you can get wool from them as well, however it's worded. We'll see you next time.